Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Woodsman Wack-Off, the series that puts two woodsmen face to face to see which competitor can whack off their log the fastest. In today's episode, we have a matchup that'll go down in history. Well, maybe not quite that, but what we got here is the Cutter's Edge Jonsered 2171, which is basically just a stock 372 XP. Now, from the factory, Cutter's Edge takes and they put a nice air filter out the top of it, but other than that, they don't do any performance mods whatsoever. So this here thing is very much 100% stock, and it has no muffler mod, no porting, nothing. The only thing that it has going on is that filter sticking up out of the top like you see it right there in the picture. So, according to Cutter's Edge, this is a stock saw. On the other side here, what we have is a 372 XP clone saw made by Neotech and custom built by Mr. Charles Briscoe. That's right, this here's a Briscoe built clone saw that is sporting the big bore kit. I believe it is a highway kit, I'm not certain on that whatsoever. It's been fully machined and the entire cylinder is lowered, has a full-on muffler mod, and it is really rip-snorting ready to go. So let's see how these two saws, one completely stock, made in Sweden, the other a Chinese clone that has been built by an expert porter. Our operators of the day are Bimford Bad Boy. This guy's all about the business, and when work needs to get done, this guy shows up and takes care of it. Running the Briscoe built saw is Hot Rod, the best damn shade tree mechanic in South Fulton, and the white trash girls all over the place love him. Now let's get it on. Alright, there they are, firing them up. Ooh, Hot Rod definitely got a little flair to his kick there. Revving them up, we're going to go right down in that red oak. Both chainsaws are running a longer bar and chain setup. This is 24 inch, and both of them have no problem digging away at this here red oak. Chips are flying, they're zinging through it. It looks pretty close, really. But maybe looks can be deceiving, I don't know. Looks like the Charles Briscoe built that there. Ooh, he cuts out a little bit early, but man, look at the lead that he had on him. Alright, so here we go now with the tug up. Here we're measuring the saw's torque. Neither saw showing any problems with this. They're really digging in just very nicely. Chips are flying. Look at old Bimford there with his Led Zeppelin t-shirt. And it looks like Hot Rod gets through first by a long shot. Yes, sir. Woo, he's excited about it. Alright, so your winner of the day is, of course, everybody really knew, the Charlie Briscoe built 372 XP clone saw. Now let's go to Bodie and see what he has to say about it. Okie dokie artichokey. Yeah, we all knew that one was going to go down the way that it did, but what we didn't know is the margin of defeat. And now I gotta call it out. Yep, Hot Rod cut out of I just had a thought of whenever I said Hot Rod is me, and a couple people razzed me about that. What? No, you're kidding. Hot Rod is actually you, Bodie? Yes, Hot Rod is actually me. And white trash women all over the place love me. That's stupid. Anyways, what was I saying? Oh yeah, Hot Rod cut out at the bottom. And so whenever I was getting the times personally, I added a little bit of extra time to Hot Rod's cut. And I figured the Briscoe built clone saw beat the stock saw by about 6 seconds. And then I went to the tug up, and it was exactly 6 seconds. So, Charlie, in about a 32-second cut for a stock saw, you did it in about 36 seconds or 26 seconds on one cut. The dog end was actually faster. The dog end was 30 seconds for the stock saw, 24 seconds for your saw. Charlie, I'm talking about. So now let's talk a little bit about the saws. So we all know, or well, if you watch the channel, you guys know that my Jonsered 2171. Love that saw. It is awesome. But boy, does it run good. It runs so good. But so does a bone stock 372 XP original edition. They just run great. They just run great. So on one hand, a lot of people will see this and think that Jonsered has some stuff done to it. On the other hand, it's like, no, that's it. That's the way it runs, and that's the way a really good one runs. If you have one and it's not running like that, then maybe it's time for new rings and things. This is a low hour unit. I mean, my guess would be all total, maybe 30 or 40 tanks have been ran through this thing. Maybe. I've probably ran 10 or 15 of them through myself. But this is a firefighter saw. And so the only thing that it saw for years and years and years and years was either A, weekly fire up. Right? That's what the firefighters do. They just fire them up every week, make sure everything is still good. Or B, a training exercise. I don't think it actually saw a real deal where it had to be used as a rescue saw in a real deal fire, because it's just too clean. It doesn't look like it's actually seen that. So anyways, moving on, let's talk about that 372 clone saw that Charlie built. Now, Charlie will openly admit that he is not super familiar with the 372 XP. At this point right now, I think he's done like 3 or 4 of them, and I think this one was maybe his very first one. I'm not sure about that, but either way, I mean, I know what he's doing. We're talking to each other about this and everything, and he's not doing anything that would screw up the port work. So it's like, this is representative of a good build, even though Charlie is new to that stuff. Hey, shut up, dogs. See how they, take care of my shit. Anyways, so now I believe that this piston setup, he did angle the combustion chamber and the top of the piston to match whenever he was cutting his squish. He's been on this kick where he likes doing that, and he's getting good results on it with some saws. He says with these saws right here, he's not really happy about it. But to Charlie, I mean, that's he's one of those guys. He can't be a commercial porter, because he spends too much time on every single saw that he builds, and so you can't be like that if you're earning a living doing this stuff. And so like, anyway, it's weird. It's a thing. It's like he only takes on basically his own saws and little saws every now and then for people that he knows or whatever. So he kind of puts in like little extra effort type stuff that like I wouldn't do. I mean, I don't, like polishing the piston top kind of thing, and we all know about the polishing the exhaust, but that's I'm talking about that, squish, the way that he's cutting it at an angle right there. He's going for things. He's experimenting and trying to get as much power as possible, and he thinks that doesn't work out very well on the 372 XPs. Doesn't know why. It's working out well on other saws for him, but not this one particularly. But let's speak about the fact that it's a clone saw. Okay? The reality with the clone saws is whatever you do to them, if you do the same thing to a stock saw, the stock saw beats it. And even to a point that like this has a big bore cylinder on it. Well, the big bore cylinder, you think you're getting something, you're not. It's actually probably worse than your standard cylinder, even in the aftermarket category. So like what I'm saying is, yeah, we all know at this point that a OE, an original edition Husqvarna 372 XP cylinder is not just better than, it is significantly better than all aftermarket cylinders that you could get for it. So I don't care what you do to an aftermarket 372 XP, you can't make it as fast as the original equipment 372 XP if you do everything the same way. All right, they just don't work that way. All right, but then the big bore itself, I built one, and the only reason I did it, I got to be clear about this. I did it for Aaron, and he had an X-Torque saw. So since he had an X-Torque saw, and to get that cylinder off of there, couldn't find an OEM cylinder, so we went ahead and we went with an aftermarket big bore cylinder because, might as well go for that. Anyways, because we knew we weren't building the X-Torque. Didn't like the X-Torque, didn't want the X-Torque, and so we did a highway big bore cylinder. It was slightly slower than the built OEM 371 cylinder that I built for Randy. So same builder. I did everything really pretty much the same way. I actually left the roof a little bit higher on the big bore because I wanted it to be more torquey and stuff. And it pulled really, really, really well, just like Charlie's here. But it wasn't as good as the 371. And for those that don't know, 371 and the 372 original edition, same thing. The only thing different between those two saws is one has a single ring piston, the 371. The other one has two rings, and then the chain tensioner is on the side versus up front. It was just a slight upgrade of the model whenever it went to 372. Let's see. So, with this race right here that you just saw, if you took that Jonsered 2171, if I gave that cylinder and piston to Charlie, and he did exactly the same thing that he did to this big bore 372 clone, the Jonsered would beat it. The cylinders are just better. But with the big bore specifically, what I found was the transfers had massive blowdown, right? It was like at 34 degrees blowdown on the transfers. And that's because the casting of that cylinder was from the cylinder casting of the 375 cutoff saw. Right? The cutoff saw is, it's got a cutoff wheel, right? And they don't want that thing to spin fast RPMs. You've got a certain amount, and then, you got it governed and everything. I don't know. I'm sure it has a limited coil, maybe a governed carb, but it doesn't spin high RPMs, and you don't want that. And that's why they have that huge blowdown, 34 degrees. So, the aftermarket big bore cylinders, they have that same blowdown. And you go, well, that's no problem. You can correct that, right? Well, whenever you do, those little upper transfers whenever you correct that 34-degree blowdown and you change it to, say, 24 degrees, you are making them larger like that. And whenever you do that, what you're doing is you're making them bigger. Well, bigger, it flows more, right? A lot of people are into that. From my experience, it just does not work that way. So the smaller transfers have a lot higher velocity going through there. And that, in my opinion, is what kills these big bore kits. Because you want to address the crazy blowdown that they have from the factory. And so you raise those transfers. Well, whenever you do, you're making them big. And yeah, go ahead, make the jokes. Go ahead. They're just huffing out and flowing out the air and fuel mixture, and you have no velocity. So you lose your RPM, and you even lose torque. And so that's why these big bore cylinders suck. And I personally think that every single person out there should stop building them. So I know I won't do it again. The regular, what is it? 50 millimeter bore cylinders are better. So the big bore stuff, yeah. But I mean, still, you can get performance out of them. I'm not saying that you can't. I'm just saying for everything that you do to one of those, you do that exact same thing to, especially an OEM, a stock cylinder, versus a aftermarket cylinder. Either one of those, you do those exact same steps to the 50 millimeter bore cylinders, you'll get better results than the big bore, I think. And now, hey man, if you're out there and did it, well, like Aaron Lynch, we all know that he built Tasman, a big bore 372 clone, right? And that thing runs stellar. It runs great. Okay. So maybe I'm wrong, but I bet you if he'd done the same thing to an OEM cylinder, the OEM cylinder would beat the big bore. So, they're just better. And I think that actually the aftermarket 50 millimeter cylinders are also better than the aftermarket 52 millimeter cylinders. So I'm all about the 50 millimeter cylinder, or even the 48 millimeter cylinder. Even though I've yet to build one of those, I have ran them and they can be amazing. So, yeah, that's enough for this video. It's probably extremely long-winded, but that's the channel. The channel should be called The Long-Winded Lumberjack. Anyways, yeah, 6 seconds faster. That's nothing to, disregard. Especially, on an all clone saw. That's a good deal. I was going to say something. I ain't doing it. Later, guys.